So, Paul, I already quoted you. You are the first one. Please.
Well, thank you, Michaela, Daniela, and the Foundation for the invitation. I want to present findings from a study about socioeconomic inequality and longevity using a multi-dimensional approach. It's joint work together with Klaus Tustrup and Benjamin Lucerena. We're all working out of Copenhagen. As Daniela said, the motivation is straightforward. We're all familiar with socioeconomic inequalities and longevity are widening and are receiving growing attention. High SES individuals live longer than low SES individuals, and the longevity SES gap has widened in many places. And rising inequality and declining social mobility compounds this problem. Nevertheless, there are several things we don't know. Empirical studies typically focus on a single socioeconomic status indicator, either education or income typically, and single indicators might underestimate the true SES longevity gradient. How much larger is the gradient when we combine multiple indicators? That's our question. Or how much steeper is the socioeconomic gradient in life expectancy when we combine these multiple indicators using machine learning? Is a specific research question. What we do, we use Danish register data for these 43 years. We pick 3 cohorts and track them from age 40 through 78. With about 90,000 men and 100,000 women. We have fewer observations for men because we use IQ information collected at the assessment for the military, so we don't have as many observations for men as women. We measure SES at age 38, 2 years before our motility window starts. We use 5 SES indicators: education, income, wealth, occupation, and IQ scores for men. And our empirical approach, we use XGBoost ML to predict mortality, and then a Gompert survival model to extrapolate that to life expectancy. We rank individuals by their predicted life expectancy from this model, and we compare single factor to multi-factor SES gradients. And our main outcome is cohort life expectancy from age 40. Conceptual framework. So we model life expectancy, Y, as a function of a vector of SES indicators X. And each indicator is a noisy proxy for latent socioeconomic status. When we add indicators, we recover more of the latent SES variation. If they give additional predictive power for SES, and in our context, if they are valid predictors of longevity only through socioeconomic status, we're limiting ourselves to that channel. And by the law of the total variance, of course, the more indicators, the closer we get to the true latent SES inequality. And machine learning allows us to flexibly interact these indicators and allow for nonlinearities without overfitting. Sample construction, I've spoken about most of this. We lose 15% of men who don't attend the military assessment. We use the SES indicators measured at 38. Income, this is net of taxes and transfers. For education, we use, it's actually qualifications records that the Ministry of Education looks after. So we use the qualification indicators and years of schooling associated with that. For wealth, during this period, these early years, there was a wealth taxation in Denmark. We use assets minus liabilities and factor in a scaling for imputed housing wealth. We use occupation dummies and IQ tests for men. Briefly about the estimation approach. So we use this machine learning XGBoost for mortality prediction. We have a training test sample split 60-40, and it's nice in this context to balance the training sample. So for the training, we use a sample with 50% observed mortality. And for calibration, we do a logit regression of the XTBoost mortality predictions interacted with age. And we calibrate this to the unbalanced mortality. It's not 50% in the sample to get back to the population. And then the final step, we predict life expectancy via Gompertz. So we do ordinary least squares regression of log predicted mortality on age for each individual, and we plug the intercepts and slopes into a Gompertz survival model. It's nice to allow the slopes to vary. We get a compensation effect of mortality, which is, of course, relevant. So the XGBoost approach that we use, actually, I should have said at the outset, details of what I'll present we circulated in a working paper at CEBI, Copenhagen University, a few months ago, and CES-IFO out of Munich. So if you're interested in more details, look there. The advantage of the algorithm we use and our approach is that it allows heterogeneous slopes, which is important for SES analysis. We have two main figures, as Daniela showed this one previously. This is life expectancy at age 40 for men. What we have on the horizontal axis is the socioeconomic status percentile, which comes out of our model. It's predicted, each individual's position in the predicted life expectancy distribution by SES measure. You can see each of this is for men, so each of the single factors are all of the coloured lines that, apart from the smooth one, when we combine indicators with the ML approach, you can see the multi-factor curve, which ranges from 65 to 86, 87 for men in this picture, from the lowest to the highest SES percentile. Similar figure for women. We don't have IQ here. Notice that the axis, we've essentially shifted up the axis back by a few years, and the range from top to bottom is similar across the SES percentiles when we include multi-factor SES. I have three more exhibits to share with you. Different ways to present what comes out of our modelling exercise. Two panes here, the top for men, the bottom for women. If you focus on the lower one for women, the next to bottom row, a linear gradient. This is the increase in life expectancy for each percentile of increase in SES when we have a linear fit of the curve I just showed you. So using a multi-factor approach for women, you can see a 0.157 year increase in life expectancy for each percentile SES. This multi-factor, and compare that to essentially 0.1 for education only for women. If we look at the SES share, so the percentage of the overall variance that's explained by SES, you can see using multi-factor approach for women, 8.4%, compared to, for example, for education, 3.7% of the variance is explained with just one factor. Our headline findings. So when we compare single to multi-factor, the longevity gap, 24 years top to bottom for men, 23 years for women. When we look at education alone, it's 9 years. Income alone is 17. Wealth alone is up to 17 years for men and 12 years for women. The gradient steepness. So when we look at when we use multi-factor compared to income alone, the gradient is 50% steeper. Compared to education alone, it's more than twice as steep. Wealth is the single biggest indicator, of course. Now turning to the explained variance in life expectancy. You can see the multi-factor, 12% for men, 8% for women, is much larger. So standard estimates of SES inequality and longevity are substantially understated. Second table of exhibits. Here, this is the percentage in the top and bottom decile or percentile, and multi-factor life expectancy, who also rank in the top or bottom percentiles for each single indicator. The key insight from this table is if you're consistently high or low across all indicators, it predicts life expectancy far better than if an individual tops for any single indicator. I think this is the final exhibit I'll share with you. Yes, the explained variance when one compares one or two indicators combined. Recall the baseline using all indicators is about 12% for men and 8.5% for women. You can see that in bold, when we can see that the bold column for wealth shows that wealth is the most indispensable SES indicator. If you only drop that, then you reduce the explained variance by more than 3 percentage points for men. So wealth is a dominant single indicator. It accounts for about 8% of the variance for men and 5% for women, more than income or education. And as I said, excluding wealth drops the multi-factor down quite a bit. No single indicator can compensate for missing wealth. Income and wealth has similar predictive power at the extremes, but wealth is better in the middle of the distribution. Wealth and income together explain 10% of that is 10% versus these smaller percentages when we consider them separately. It's important to note that if you have near zero wealth, you're not in the lowest SES percentile. For example, individuals who are self-employed might have large business-related losses, so it's not monotonic, and it's a nice feature of machine learning that correctly handles this feature of the data. Yes, education income for women explains 5.2%, greater than the sum of their individual parts. There's a positive interaction effect between these different components of SES in explanatory power. I have some robustness points that I'll skip over. Details are in the working paper. External validity, I'll also skip over. Just want to point out, finally, our contribution that we claim beyond prior work. So previous machine learning mortality studies are focused on prediction accuracy And they do a better job of us, in a sense, because they include health variables. But we've ruled this out. So we exclude prior health to isolate the socioeconomic component. We connect life expectancy, inequality, literature via the Gompertz extrapolation. We find a compensating effect of mortality. So higher SES individuals have flatter mortality slopes. To sum up, our main message is a single socioeconomic status indicators can substantially underestimate SES inequality in longevity. Combining multiple indicators using machine learning reveals a gradient that's between 50% and 150% steeper than single indicators alone. We have 4 key findings. On average, a 24-year gap between the lowest and highest SES individuals when we do the multi-factor approach, compared to between 9 and 17 years using single factors. Multi-factor approach explains about 4 times more variance in life expectancy than education alone, and wealth is the most important single indicator. Wealth at age 38, that is. It's more important than income or education. And being consistently ranked highly across all indicators is more predictive than topping one indicator alone. We have 3 implications, takeaways from this. Standard analyses using income or education gradients miss a large share of inequality. And if you collect data on multiple SES dimensions, especially wealth, it helps a lot in measuring the gradient. This rich administrative data allows more accurate measurement than survey-based approaches. Thank you.